You know, sometimes when we are clashing with someone, we end up saying all the wrong things. I know you have been there. I have been there. My family members have been there. It's a human thing. It doesn't mean you're a terrible person just because you say things that maybe you don't mean. And maybe you say things that you do mean, but in the moment, it's really hard to keep them concealed because you're so upset. So what you're saying is being fueled by those deep emotions. Whether it's on purpose or not on purpose, you may have heard someone say, "You're a psychopath." Do you know that? You have all the characteristics of a psychopath. If this is you, this video is for you. In today's video, I want to give you some signs that you are not a psychopath. And I want to help you understand from a different angle what a psychopath actually is. So this is kind of a fun video for me, I think, and hopefully for you, because I'm going to what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to kind of disconfirm, I should say, something that maybe a family member has said to you. But before we do that, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamra, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. So sometimes, you know, as I said in the introduction, if you're really, really upset, you may say some things that are not healthy. But when you're in a dysfunctional and toxic family, words fly like you wouldn't believe. And I know that you have had this experience. If you have a dysfunctional, unhealthy, toxic family, things get said, things get taken to heart. And then before you know it, everybody's fighting, everybody's arguing. And sometimes things are coming out of the mouth of family members, maybe even your own, that just simply isn't healthy. But let's go a step higher in this video, and let's look at the family member who has decided to turn the tables on you. You are the family member who is trying to exist in a chaotic, dysfunctional, toxic environment, and yet they call you a psychopath. So let's say that happened. And now you have it stuck in the back of your mind, even though you know in your heart that this is not the truth. It may be stuck in the back of your mind that, what if I am a psychopath? What if they are correct? What if I'm a psychopath and I don't know it? There was that time when my friend called me a psychopath too. Or you may be thinking to yourself, you know, there was that time I didn't feel any guilt or remorse for something I did. And I wonder if that's where this is coming from. Or you may even think something like, I've never had a successful relationship, so maybe I am a psychopath. If you are having those kind of thoughts, you're most likely not a psychopath. I know that sounds really complex, and it may sound kind of simple for some of you and kind of silly, but the reality is this, that a psychopath does not have the ability to self-evaluate. And if you have the ability to pause and say, you know what, maybe I'm that, or there was that time when I did A, B, and C. If you can flip the script and flip the tables, so to speak, and self-evaluate, you're not a psychopath. And that's what I want you to keep in mind. But let me break this down a little bit more for you. So by definition, a psychopath is born. They tend to be kind of influenced by two important things that we all are influenced by in our lives growing up, and that's environment and biology, genes. So the genetic makeup of a psychopath is actually rather different than the genetic makeup that most of us have. So they do have some biological changes, and there has been some research that shows that there are actual physical neurological changes to the brain. Okay, I talk a lot about the brain on this channel, and recently I've really delved in. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the brain and schizophrenia and traumatic brain injury, go ahead and check these videos out right up here. But there are actual different changes happening in the brain. I think I could say it like that. There's actually different changes in the brain that are physical. Now, these are just some studies that are pointing these things out. Other studies really focus on the conditioning of the individual over time or throughout child development. So conditioning meaning, how are they being raised? How are they being molded? What are they learning from their parents? What kind of education are they getting? What kind of emotional experiences are they getting? How are they being told to really care about the other people in their lives? The number one predictor of psychopathy in an adult, the number one predictor is not being taught how to empathize as a child. We can definitely avoid a lot of psychopaths growing up in our society if we just teach our kids empathy and we just teach them to care about the feelings and the minds and the needs and the wants of other people. That is largely what is missing in a psychopath. They have no empathy and they have no ability to have true and authentic remorse and guilt. So they are born, but they are also influenced by environment, okay? Now, the term psychopath really describes a cluster of characteristics. What I mean by this is all of these characteristics right here is what the term psychopathy is actually getting at. So it's like antisocial personality disorder turned up, okay? And so really what's going on with these cluster of symptoms is they are persistent. There's a persistent violation of other people. And so that persistence is what causes the psychopathy, okay? Now, I also want you to keep in mind that growing up in a household where there's no empathy, growing up in a household where, you're learning some behaviors that are not healthy, you may also be exposed to manipulation, instrumental charm, right? So using charm in an instrumental way to get your way growing up. Maybe there's some social manipulation, pitting two people against each other, or manipulating the police to get what you want, or manipulating a teacher to get what you want. There may also be some natural tendencies to rise to the top and to make a good impression socially and get what you want that way, and to get those social rewards of applause and, praise and reinforcement, right? So all of those things matter when we look at the whole alphabet soup of what causes a psychopath. So if someone in your family has said to you, you are absolutely a psychopath, you meet every characteristic, let me dispel that, okay? So the number one sign that you are not a psychopath is you can empathize with other people. The simple fact that you have what's known as, here it is right here, theory of mind says a lot. Theory of mind is a psychological concept that describes your ability to empathize with people. It's an actual part of the brain right here on the screen. It is in the temporal lobe area. And a lot of people who are, I'm going to say, on the autism spectrum sometimes struggle with theory of mind. They have an inability sometimes to put themselves in the shoes of somebody else. Now, there's some research that dispels that myth, but there is also some research that supports it, that there is a deficit in theory of mind. So if you have empathy and you are able to put yourself in the shoes of somebody else and really imagine how they think and how they feel, you've got theory of mind. So that's the number one sign that you are not a psychopath, okay? The other thing is, I think that, the ability to feel deep-seated emotions is another sign. The fact that you're crying over a puppy being murdered, that you are loving and compassionate towards babies and children, that, you can think about a murder that has happened to a close friend or associate and break down and really feel hurt. The fact that you feel grief and loss, the fact that you have lost something and you've cried and you have felt pain and hurt about it is another sign that you are not a psychopath. Okay. The other thing is authentic affection. So, there's no mimicry. I think I can say that. There's no mimicry. There's no mimicking of emotion, that you are authentically and realistically showing emotion. You're not falling all over the place and really putting on these shallow emotions to try to cause people to believe in them. You are authentically affectionate and you are authentically emotional, and you have the emotions to feel and to express, okay? So authentic affection. Sometimes with a psychopath, you can definitely feel that the affection is mimicked, that it is in an attempt to look a certain way. and also that it isn't real. You know, there's a fakeness to it, and it's really hard to explain. You have to feel it in the moment. And I've seen it in therapy. I've seen it outside of therapy. I've seen it with previous clients. The empathy and the affection can be mimicked, but intuition, I think I touched my microphone, I'm so sorry. Intuition allows you to discern, is this really what I'm seeing? Is this really, and you can feel on the inside that there's something off. It's just off, Next thing is a regard for safety and responsibility. You're responsible. You are worried about safety. You want to make sure that other people are safe. You want to make sure that you're safe. You want to make sure that you do things in a mature way. And you also want to make sure that you protect the rights and the freedoms of other people. Sociopaths could care less. The last thing that they want to do is be responsible and care about other people. Now, they may mimic this, and they may try to look pro-social, and they may try to, prove to other people on the outside that they are caring and concerned. But again, authenticity, I'll say, is what I'm getting at here. Some people may argue with you and say, you're not empathic. And okay, maybe there are times when you're not. And there are people in society who just don't know how to show empathy, and they can't and they won't, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that you're a psychopath. Maybe your sign of not being a psychopath is that you care for the safety of others, that you are very responsible, and you want to make sure that everybody is safe, including yourself, okay? That's another sign that you're not a psychopath. I think the ability to kind of process your own emotions and process other people's emotions and think them through and go back in your mind and feel emotions because of something you did or something they did. And also being able to self-evaluate is another sign that you are not a psychopath. Being able to self-evaluate and being able to evaluate other people in an authentic way is another sign that you're not a psychopath. That's the only thing that kind of separates you from that, Again, self-evaluation and empathy. Those are the two most important things. Responsibility and safety. All of that is wrapped up in the fact that you can self-evaluate. And if you can't do that, then that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. Now, I've had some people question me about children. Here's what they have said to me. Can a child be a psychopath? My number one reply to that is always absolutely not. Children are by nature egocentric, okay? The world revolves around them because they are children. There is nothing that we can do about that, but teach them empathy and teach them respect of other people's space, and also teach them how to regard other people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Again, we have to teach that to them. But children are by nature egocentric. They're selfish because, all they know is them. They don't have the mental and neurological capability to be mature enough to say, you know what, maybe Kim over there wants what I have. I'm sure you've seen kids during Halloween when, candy is everywhere. They're pushing each other out of the way and trying to get candy. They rarely, and if they do, they're very mature, they rarely think of the next kid who's coming behind them to get candy. They want it all in the moment, and they'll take the whole candy basket if you give it to them. That does not mean that they are a psychopath. Now, let me just say, there are some research studies that say that children who are not being taught empathy start to show behavioral problems really early in their development, and that can slide into psychopathy. ADHD behaviors that are not correctly treated and dealt with, oppositional defiant disorder that's not treated and correctly dealt with, can slide into conduct disorder, which is fire setting, animal cruelty, disregard for people's space and rights. All of that can lead to antisocial personality disorder, which can then lead to psychopathy, okay? And again, that's that lack of teaching of empathy and a regard for other people and a regard for safety and responsibility, okay? So can children be psychopaths? No. Can they show behaviors and signs if they're not being properly taught empathy? Absolutely. Can they show behaviors that could somehow lead to psychopathy as adults and adolescents? All the time. Right? But I want you to keep in mind that children are naturally egocentric. So even if one of your family members said to you, you were a psychopath when you were a child, there's no way. That's them being angry and not having the right language to talk to you and to communicate with you. This is a tough topic, guys. I figured you would like this angle of the video. I usually do videos on psychopathy and sociopathy and narcissism, and they do really well on the channel. And I think it's because a lot of you have had experience with this. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for being with me in today's video. Go ahead and give it a thumbs up if it was helpful, and hit that subscribe and notification bell so that you can stick around with us. Bye-bye.